So the Waratahs season for 2018, I'll be the first to admit they did better than I expected. I did a video way when I first started my channel that said which Super Rugby coaches are the most likely to get fired this year. And I thought Daryl Gibson was the most likely, or at least not likely to keep his job at the end of the season. But last I read, he's got 2 more years at the Tars after finally getting it right in his 3rd year. They went 10 wins, 7 losses and a draw, which was good enough for 3rd place on the table. It's due to the conference system, so it's first overall in the Aussie conference, although they were behind the Chiefs and the Hurricanes on points. Like I say, still good enough to win that Aussie conference. Overall, it was a much improved season for the Tars, who've kind of been in the doldrums for the last couple of years, ever since they won that title. And then Checker left. It's not been that kind of happy days for the Tars, but my whiteboard just fell over in the background. There's definitely some positives here for the Tars. Statistically, if we start with the good things, 2nd overall for average points per game. That's always going to put you in a good spot. 3rd for tries, kind of goes with points. 1st for average run meters, so it shows you they're playing the game the way we like to watch the game. 1st in line breaks, makes sense if you got run meters. And then their set piece was alright as well. You got 5th overall for average line-out win percentage, 3rd for goal kicking percentage, and 3rd overall for average kick meters. So they got kind of a whole good swathe of different stats there, which show you they can run the ball, they can score points, they can bust the line, they can win their own ball at line-out time, kick the goals. It's all very good. Kick for touch. It's what you want from a good rugby team, but there's a little bit more to it than that. I mean, they are 15th, so last, for picking and driving, which is not necessarily a negative stat, because maybe that's just a strategic thing. They don't want to pick and drive. They want to get it out to Naira or whoever else. They want to get it to Falau. They don't want to be picking and driving. Maybe they don't think they've got the forwards for it. But like, even from the 14th team, there's a gap between them and 14th for picking and driving. So maybe they could do that a bit more. They were 6th overall for tries conceded, 3rd overall for missed tackles, 4th overall for run meters conceded. Those 3 things say that there are issues with the defense. You're conceding points, you're conceding tries, you're missing tackles, you're conceding lots of run meters. So whilst they're able to run it at you, bust your line, all that kind of good stuff, they do struggle a bit on defense. I mean, you got a guy like Naira. He pretty much is the epitome of that, isn't it? He's the king of going forward, and turn him around, he's not the most defensively sound player. And also, interestingly, they were 15th, so again, dead last in terms of winning penalties, but 3rd for conceding penalties. That, again, that's just not good. You're going to be conceding a lot of meters and a lot of points if you're on the wrong side of the ref's whistle, especially that bad. Like, at least if you're, I don't know, 15th for penalties won, but 15th for penalties conceded, you can kind of break even, but that is a pretty big disparity. So that is an area of the game which is kind of easily fixable. Like, the discipline thing is not as long, I mean, it's probably partly tactics, but it's something that you can clean up. So it's kind of not the end of the world. You'd rather have some of these good stats with that than something which is a bit harder to solve. The defense might be a bit harder to solve. In terms of individual players, Naira, like I mentioned him earlier, he was a very important part of what they were doing, because, I mean, he is the 2nd overall equal for tries for the season. He had 15 tries over the season. 2nd overall for average run meters. 1st overall for average line breaks. 4th overall for average tackle busts. The guy does a lot going forward with the ball, and he fit in like a jigsaw piece with the way that the Waratahs had their attack planned up. They sent so much ball his way because they know teams struggle to bring him down. So why not use him? And they did. On the defensive side, which, like I said, from the overall team stats weren't that impressive, you still got Hooper, He missed part of the season, but he was 6th overall for tackles average per game, 5th overall for pilfers per game. So he is a guy who can do a job. Defensively, it's just as a team effort that they need to get a bit more of that. In terms of highlights for the team overall for the season, obviously they had some good wins over the Aussie opponents. In week 5, they beat the Rebels 51-27. That was at home. And that was at a time, because you mean, again, you're going to say Rebels didn't make playoffs. Rebels were very good at the start of the season, and nobody knew how good they were. At that point, it was kind of a question of who is going to be the first in the Aussie Conference, because the Rebels are looking really hot, and the Waratahs were looking okay. The Waratahs blew them out of the water. Week 14, Waratahs beat the Highlanders 41 points to 12. And again, at that point, Aussie teams, none of them had beaten Kiwi opposition in over a year. So the importance of that game kind of can't be underestimated. It was a home game, but they had not been in the best form, and then they went in and smashed the Highlanders 41 points to 12. Highlanders did have a red card in that game, but the Waratahs looked good even before that red card happened. So it was definitely a monkey off the back for Aussie Rugby. Later on in the season, we saw more wins from Aussie teams over New Zealand opposition, but it was a big victory at the time. And speaking of wins over New Zealand opposition, their quarterfinal again against the Highlanders, 30 points to 23 in Sydney. A big comeback from behind. They managed to, again, just remind us all that Aussie Rugby is still here, even if we, in New Zealand anyway, write a fair bit about them in the media, which is less than complimentary. So, yeah, it was a job done. Lowlights, though, particularly against the Lions, whereas they had the wood over the Highlanders, the Lions, they struggled. They lost 29-0 at home to the Lions. You just can't be being kept scoreless at home. They ended up going out to the Lions in a semi-final over in Joburg. That was 44-26, and they never really looked like winning that game. They lost to the Blues 24-21 at home. It was at Brookvale, but it was still at home. That was before they beat the Highlanders. That should have been the game where they broke the New Zealand kind of hoodoo. And everyone would have said, oh, it's only the Blues, it doesn't matter. But they even lost to the Blues. That's the kind of game that they weren't winning. And a kind of a low light, but maybe a highlight, is they lost to the Crusaders down in Christchurch 31-29. Very few teams got within 2 points of the Crusaders in Christchurch this year. I'm not sure, I haven't checked all the results, but that may be the closest result that the Crusaders came to losing at home. Crusaders probably should have lost at home, I believe, in that game. I think Moody probably should have been red carded, but the Waratahs had a big lead and threw it away. Crusaders did well to come back into it, but I mean, it was a low light that they threw away the lead, but kind of a highlight that they pushed the Crusaders as well as they did. In terms of next season, you look at the guys staying and leaving. By the time this video goes up, it might have changed a little bit, but as I record this, I mean, confirmed, obviously, you got Naya Ravoro is leaving, you got Paddy Ryan leaving. Paddy Ryan's been a stalwart for the Waratahs for many years now, so it's a pity to see him go. Naya Ravoro is a big loss just because, I mean, all these stats, a lot of them can be attributed to what he was doing. As I said, he was just a target for them to get the ball to in so many of their games. I mean, that game where they beat the Sunwolves 70-odd, he was just running riot. So yeah, he is leaving. He's going, I think it's Northampton he's going to. That's a big loss. For guys staying, obviously I just said Gibson, I think is on for another 2 years. He finally got the formula right, so I guess I'm always for giving coaches more than a year to kind of get things right, because there's got to be a settling in period. Hopefully he's got the formula now. Hopefully it doesn't revolve only around Naya Ravoro. In terms of guys staying, you still got Kepu, you still got Robertson, so that's some solid, prop muscle in the front row. Simmons and Staniforth in the second row, both fine, if not spectacular. I still expect to see more from Staniforth going forward. Hooper, Miller, and Holloway as your back rowers. Again, Hooper's very class. Miller is an interesting one to stay behind Hooper. We'll see how he kind of goes, if he gets much game time. In terms of backs, you got Gordon and Phipps, the two of the best nines in Aussie Rugby are still there. Hegarty is signed up. He's kind of been the utility guy this year. Newsom and Rona are still signed up. Now, Rona was probably their third best guy in terms of offensive stats, so it's good to have him on board. But there's still a few question marks because Folau is the obvious one. Is he staying? As I record this, I don't believe he has signed a new contract with the Tars. He's played enough games for the Wallabies to use that kind of ghetto rule to go and play overseas and take the money if he wants. But interestingly, his wife, who is a Kiwi netball player, has just signed on to play netball in Sydney. So that would kind of indicate that Folau is going to stay at least for another year with the Tars. I didn't see them having any hookers on contract for next year. Obviously, they got Latu, who's been playing a bit for the Wallabies. They got Fitzpatrick. He's been snubbed by the Wallabies, so I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't want to stay, but maybe he thinks he can make it in time for World Cup 2019. I would have thought if he was in the picture, he would have been picked by now. But he was solid all season at Super Rugby level. Foley is another one. Bernard Foley is the 10 for the job. I mean, how many years has he been playing 10 for the Waratahs? A lot. I'm assuming he's going to sign on with World Cup next year, but here's another one that, as I record this, I do not have confirmation that he is on board with the Tars next year. So a few big names to sign. Can you imagine a Waratahs team next year without Naiyaravoro, Folau, and Foley? That would be a difficult season, one would imagine. They're going to need some kind of strike weapon or a tactic, because with Naiyaravoro gone, they're losing that bit of X factor. Behind him is Folau in terms of their stats, and then it's Rona, and then it's kind of the rest. So they do need to make the most of the off-season in terms of getting somebody on board who they can kind of use as a attacking weapon. But yeah, third overall for the Tars. Pretty good season. Gibson proved a few critics wrong, including myself. So we will see how they go next year. As I said, some interesting kind of contractual stuff to get sorted. If they can get that done, they could have a strong squad. If not, they may be in a bit of trouble. But we will see. You guys let me know your thoughts on how you thought the Tars went and how they'll be looking for next year. And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.